Welcome to The Becks, a podcast that explores multimedia horror with hosts Becky and Sydney. Join us as we talk about movies, books, video games, music, and much, much more.
Welcome back. My name is Sydney Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Snow.
And we're the Becks.
Hey, everyone.
We're here. We've made it. We keep having technical difficulties, not bad, but the computer will pick up one microphone but not the other, so that's where we are.
Yeah.
But we're here.
Here we are.
We did it.
Well, we didn't do it, but we tried.
Jacob did it.
Valiantly.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yes, thanks, Jacob.
So this week, we're talking about Bird Box, the novel by Josh Malerman, Michigan author.
Which I thought was super cool, because I did not realize it was a Michigan-based story.
Well, you just had experience with the movie.
My only reference was the movie. Yeah.
Until I made you
read the book.
We both...
Technically, I didn't read it. I did an audiobook.
Audiobooks, listen, in the spirit of accessibility and other things, I don't know. I truly believe that audiobooks are reading. I don't agree with people who don't think that they're reading. I do think that you read the book, even though it was in listening form. So, published in 2014, he wrote the first draft, actually, he had it done around 2008, but this was also when The Happening by M. Night Shyamalan came out, as well as the movie The Road. The original book was done by Cormac McCarthy, but the movie came out starring Viggo Mortensen. Did you ever watch that?
No, I was going to say, I don't even think I've heard of that. Now, The Happening I have, and I've watched that multiple times, and it freaks me out every time.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. No, I think it's just the whole premise of, the Earth turning on us, which, yeah.
That's fair. I do believe that the premise of the movie is very interesting.
I'm not saying the acting was, woohoo, wonderful, but...
I'm talking to a plastic plant. Not Mark Wahlberg's finest performance, no.
No. But the premise of the movie freaks me out. Just the whole fact of, we abuse this earth so much. And who's to say that the plants and the earth that we take for granted wouldn't turn on us? So, yeah, that one freaks me out a little bit. But The Road, I've never heard of.
It's another post-apocalyptic movie about a father and son.
Okay.
And I haven't watched the movie yet. It is on my list, but I did read the book last year, and he notably refers to the son as only the son or the boy, which is a parallel.
Yeah.
Because in Bird Box, Mallory, the main character, only refers to her children as boy and girl.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about The Road. We're not here to talk about The Happening. We're here to talk about Bird Box. But as I was saying, the first draft was written in 2008. Josh Malerman didn't really try to put it out because he thought it would be lost in the shuffle because of all of the hubbub around The Happening and The Road.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, I just want to take a second to talk about Lovecraftian horror because that is the staple of the horror that takes place in Bird Box. So, do you know anything about Lovecraft?
No.
Really?
Really?
Okay. So he was an author back in the early 1900s. He was born in 1890. Lovecraftian horror, also called cosmic horror or eldritch horror, is a subgenre of horror fiction and weird fiction, and it emphasizes the horror of the unknowable and the incomprehensible more than gore or other elements of shock.
So a little bit more terrifying than gore.
Yeah, exactly.
The unknown is always scarier than...
Yeah, exactly. So Josh Malerman in Bird Box does utilize the unknowable or the incomprehensible.
100%.
100%, right. So that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
So the hallmark of Lovecraft's work is cosmicism, or the sense that ordinary life is a thin shell over a reality that is so alien and abstract in comparison that merely contemplating it would damage the sanity of an ordinary person.
Wow.
Yeah, so insignificance and powerlessness at the cosmic scale and uncompromising negativity. I'm reading this directly from Wikipedia, by the way. Author China Mieville notes that Lovecraft's horror is not one of intrusion, but of realization. The world has always been implacably bleak. The horror lies in our acknowledging that fact. Lovecraft's work is steeped in an insular feeling of rural rural New England, and much of the genre continues to maintain this sense that that which man was not meant to know might be closer to the surface of ordinary life outside of the crowded cities of modern civilization. So, Bird Box takes place in Michigan, Detroit specifically, so not exactly outside of civilization, but it is a post-apocalyptic novel, so civilization it falls away, it kind of deteriorates and becomes very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like an isolation.
100% isolation, which I think for most of us as humans is a scary thing.
Yeah.
We are meant to be social.
Well, I mean, we kind of touched upon that in The Strangers.
Yeah.
You know, the last episode, because they were all alone. There wasn't anyone around. They couldn't reach anyone on the phone. They couldn't do any of that. So, yeah. Before we go any further, I do want to mention this episode, we are including a trigger warning because I don't know how deep we'll get into talking about specifics in the book, but there's very violent death, suicide, animal cruelty.
Yeah.
And death and child abuse, some things that could be considered child abuse. So if any of those things bother you, perhaps give this episode a skip.
Yep.
All right. So the basic premise of Bird Box is there starts to become a phenomenon where people are suddenly becoming violent against themselves specifically, but also against others if they're in the way. It starts in Russia. That's where the first reports come from. And then it spreads. It spreads pretty quickly across the world. Mallory, the main character, is not that worried about it at first. She has other concerns because she finds out that she is pregnant from a one-night stand.
Yeah.
And it's like that in the movie, isn't it?
You know, I believe so. It's been a long time since I actually watched the movie. I was more into the book this time. I was going to watch it last night and just didn't get a chance to.
That's okay.
So, but yeah, I believe that is what happened.
I remember that she's pregnant, obviously. So, the book takes place between two timelines, much like the movie. Before is with Mallory and her sister at first, and then the housemates. And then the second timeline is her with the children. You know, they're older. I can't remember how old they were in the movie, but in the book, they are 4.
I believe they were older in the movie.
5 or 6.
It seems to me like, yeah, they were.
I had a hard time. I don't have a lot of experience with children, so I can't really say. But in the book, I kind of had a little bit of a hard time believing that 4-year-olds were the way that they're portrayed. Now, Josh Malerman and Mallory herself as a character, they go out of their way to state that, okay, these children have been trained. They don't have a normal childhood, and it's something that Mallory laments about continuously. She's not happy with how she had to raise her children, how she had to train them, and how they don't act like children. It makes her very sad. Part of the reason why they embark on the journey, her and the children, into this very dangerous and outside world is because she wants them to have the chance to have a normal childhood, and she thinks that the destination that they're going to will provide them that.
Yeah.
Which I would say kind of a theme throughout the book is motherhood or parenthood, because even with all of the shit that happens on the news and stuff, and her sister being worried about it, Mallory calls her parents to tell them that she's pregnant, and even her mom is like, oh, I'm not, whatever, it is what it is, but I'm mostly worried about you, Mallory.
Yeah.
So it's Mallory and her mother.
And then Mallory's role, becoming a mother, and how pretty much everything she does from the moment she finds out she's pregnant is how to protect her child and what she needs to do to move forward to make sure, because she had already decided she was definitely keeping the baby from the very beginning. So she was set out to be the best mom she could. Yeah. Not knowing what was lying before her very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that there's definitely a juxtaposition of Mallory finding out that she's pregnant and everything that's happening in the world. Again, she finds it hard to really care about what's happening at first. She doesn't take it seriously. Her sister takes it way more seriously. Yeah. But she's kind of like, I have bigger problems. Like, I am pregnant.
I have more to worry about. Yeah, I'm having a baby. These people, doing these violent things or hurting themselves or whatever, it's far away at that time. Yeah. So for her, it's kind of like, why are you concentrating on this when I'm dealing with this issue of being pregnant and unwed and alone and not knowing what I want to do? She knew right away she didn't want to include the father. She was going to tell him, of course, but she didn't expect anything from him. So she pretty much had resolved the fact in her life that she was going to raise this baby alone.
Yeah. Well, I would make an argument, like, obviously she assumed that her sister would be around.
Yeah, she knew
parents.
her family would be there for her, but she just don't think she knew she would be as alone as she ended up being. Being a pregnant woman, when you first find out, especially if you're unwed, you're young. From personal experience, I was 25. I was not married to what would become my husband later on, but it's a very lonely spot, even if you have a bunch of people around you.
Really?
When it's an unplanned pregnancy and you're not really thinking that, when you find out that you're excited, you're scared, you're terrified, you don't know what direction you're going to go in. So I think, carrying a child like that, you feel very alone because nobody else can experience what you're experiencing except for you and that baby, even if you're in a relationship. That's why most mothers have a bond to their child because
sure,
you carry him for 9 months inside of you. So, so she probably felt alone there, but had no idea what was upcoming.
Mallory really talks about, it's towards the end of the book, but she does mention that baby, her son, has been feeling things since she knew she was pregnant. Basically, she feels this connection with her child. She feels that he has been with her the whole time.
Yeah.
It's really special. I don't know. I didn't really look into the book as much as far as, like, inspiration and stuff goes. But Josh Malerman had to have known, like, a pregnant person. I don't know if he's married and his wife was pregnant and told him, or I don't know. He just really writes it super well. I was impressed. Again, I've never been pregnant, but I feel like from start to finish, Mallory and her relationship with her pregnancy and her relationship with her children and everything that goes on, I think it was very well done.
No, I do too. And if you read the book, there's a lot of instances where something's going on that's either very stressful or scary or, whatever. And the first thing that Mallory does is lays her hand on her belly.
Yep.
And he makes reference to that a lot in the book. And that's, as a mom, that's what you do. Because that's what you're doing. You're protecting that child inside of you, no matter what. And so your first thought is, well, what do I need to do for this child?
Yeah.
And he really did lay that out very well in the book.
So one thing I found funny was the news in, like, how the news was portrayed, like, very sensationalistic, and it almost feels like a parody. But if you ever watch the news, that's just how it is.
Well, we all went through the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is exactly how it is. How many things were sensationalized, how many people didn't believe it, how many people were panicking, how many people weren't panicking, the media playing us against each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see exactly what they were showing, and this was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
But you look back now and it's like, oh yeah, that's what happened.
No, and that brings me to another point too. Like, we talk all the time about how media kind of desensitizes you. Like, you get so exposed to something that after a time you're like, it's not that you don't feel something for it, but it's just like, it's a tired feeling. So good example I can use is school shootings. Like, it's horrible every time, but we hear about it so often that there's always that risk that you're just going to be like, there's another one. Like, oh, there it goes again.
We become desensitized.
And I think that's what happens towards the end of, like, when everything kind of actually falls apart in the world. People reach that point, and then they're just not. Either they're batting down the hatches, or they're just like, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is the connection that's made that they think that somebody is, it's because people are seeing something. They're seeing something and then they lose it. So Shannon, Mallory's sister, immediately, like, covers all the windows and the doors and stuff like that. And Mallory is still kind of like, it's almost like she's dissociating for the first, like, little bit of her pregnancy. Like, she's just like, okay, like, we're covering the windows now. Like, she's not really present yet.
Yeah, I think she's still in that bubble of just finding out she's pregnant.
Yeah. Well, Shannon sees something. Eventually, she peeks out the window or whatever. Mallory finds her. She'd killed herself with scissors. And very, very suddenly, Mallory's all alone. Her parents had stopped answering the phone at some point. She's not in touch with the father. She doesn't seem to have a lot of friends.
Well, they had moved from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to the Detroit area because they were so excited to be
to live in the city.
Into the city.
Yeah.
So I think at that point, no, they didn't have a lot of friends. They were just beginning to establish their life there.
Yeah.
So they were alone, except for the two of them, it sounds like. And from the sounds of it, the way he wrote the book, they hadn't been there very long.
Yeah. So she's super alone. She's about 3-ish months pregnant. She's still early pregnancy in any case. And she remembers seeing an ad in a paper about a safe house, a place where people were gathering. You know, it was said that they had, you know, fresh water, electricity.
And they were offering their home for people to come and be safe.
So Mallory makes the very brave decision to try and make her way there. And at
driving.
At this point, she knows it's not too far from her house. It's still in the Detroit area. It's not too far from the Detroit River. So she knows at this point that her sister had to have seen something. Like it's kind of sinking into her finally.
Yes, because she did notice that the blanket in her sister's room was slightly ajar, and there was sunlight coming through.
Yeah. When
she saw that, she closed her eyes and then went looking for her sister and found her in the bathroom.
Yeah. And so
at that point, I think she knew.
Yeah. And she's
driving.
She's driving. She's trying to get to the safe house. She's like closing her eyes and hitting curbs and like I can't even imagine, okay? Like so much of our lives we rely on sight, and it's just one of the most interesting things, like to be so effectively robbed of one of your senses.
Yeah.
Because it's not that you can't see, it's that you shouldn't. Like if you do,
you die. You lose your mind.
Yeah.
You kill others and yourself, or just yourself, but whatever. Whenever you see whatever they're seeing, at this point they don't know. They don't know if it's creatures. They don't know if they just don't know.
Yeah.
And so in order to survive, you have to keep your eyes shut. You cannot see whatever's out there because you will be the one to die next. And so it's terrifying. So.
Yeah. And she doesn't have just herself to worry about anymore. I mean, not that she didn't feel that way about Shanna or whatever, but
she was devastated by the loss of her sister.
And having to leave.
And just leave her like that. That bothered her greatly, which it would, I think, anybody. When you love someone, she couldn't bury her. There was nothing she could do. She just had to leave her where she was. And it was heart-wrenching. And
it was in her best interest to go.
Yeah.
And so she did. So then we meet the members of the house. We both know who our favorite is. It's Tom. It's Tom.
I love Tom.
Tom is the best. So he's kind of like the de facto leader. He became the de facto leader after the original owner of the house died.
Yeah.
And he died because he was kind of like a maverick. Like he was trying very hard to find ways around the whole seeing issue thing. So he's like, okay, so we can't, it's something that we're looking at. Like what if we put a barrier, like glasses or a video camera or, you know, all this thing. So he really kind of experimented all the time, and he died because he had the members of the house set up a camera of just the front of the house, and he's like, I'll watch it. We'll play it back. And they restrained him in one of the upper rooms, and it didn't work. Whatever he saw in the recording made him go crazy anyways, and he died.
Yeah.
And instead of letting that really kind of kill the motivation, Tom kept it up. He was not discouraged by this. He still was constantly trying to come up with ideas to try to like live in the outside world, to go outside. And because, you know, the house ran with hydroelectricity. That's how they had power. And then they had a freshwater well. So they had basic stuff, but they still food doesn't last forever. You know, they had canned goods, but Tom wasn't happy just staying in the house. It was always his plan to try to just get back to as normal as possible.
Yeah, he didn't want to stagnate. He kept saying, we need to move forward, even if it's just small movements. We can't just sit here.
Yeah. And they were also constantly looking for other survivors. One resource that they wanted really bad was a phone book, which I think is so funny because nobody owns phone books anymore, right?
Well, and cell phones aren't listed in a phone book, and most of us have cell phones. You know, not too many have landlines anymore. So, yeah. But it made me want to go get a phone book. I'm just saying.
Yeah, so they were stuck just dialing random phone numbers, hoping that they would get through to someone.
Because at this time, the landline that they had worked in the house. There were no cell phones. They were all down by then.
Right. So, some other members of the house, we have Felix, we have Jules, and Victor. And we have...
Victor was Jules' dog.
Yeah. And we have Cheryl, and we have Dawn. So those are the ones that are there when Mallory first arrives. We get some additions later on. There is a very... Okay, so this is my one beef. When I was kind of going through and talking, like, trying to pick through, like, what I wanted to talk about in my notes and stuff, I realized that Cheryl, as much as I love this book, Cheryl is very superfluous as a character. Like, I hate to say it, but she doesn't really contribute anything to...
No.
I hate that, but it's true, because, like, Felix had that really very creepy scene at the well.
Yes.
Jules and Victor are very, very important for reasons that we'll talk about next. Dawn, very, very important. Tom's the leader. And even Olympia and Gary, who come later, very important people. So, let's talk about Felix in the well.
It was creepy. It was so creepy. I mean, I can feel, like, listening to that portion of the book, I could feel my heart pounding for him. Like, I could feel that fear that he had to have been feeling.
Yeah. So they have a system to go outside to where the well is. They have, like, helmets and blindfolds.
And they have sticks lining the path so they know if they go too far one way or another, they feel the wood, so it keeps them where they're supposed to go.
Yep. And so one person stays at the back door with the back door closed and just talks through the door while the other person goes and retrieves buckets of water. Now, they have to take the trip multiple times in order to get enough water for, dishes, bathroom, all the accoutrement that comes with that. So Felix goes, and this is a normal chore. Okay, keep in mind this is something that is
Everybody takes turns.
Yeah, it's very routine. Well, this particular time, Felix gets to the well, and he's very he's kind of uneasy this time. He doesn't really there's no way for him to put a finger on why he's feeling uneasy.
He's just super anxious.
Yeah, he's just really anxious. So Jules, who is at the door, is keeps talking to him, telling him stories, just shooting the shit, whatever, to try to make him feel better.
Yeah. Did, in fact, at one point ask him if he was up to it that day. He said, oh, yeah, I can do this.
Yep. So he gets the first bucket. He goes back. It's fine. He's like, I just have to do this 3 more times. It'll, whatever. So he goes back again, and he realizes that he's hearing something in the well.
Yeah, at first he thought it was in the yard.
Yeah.
But when he went back, he realizes that something is in the well.
And when he's pulling up the bucket, he's like, is it the bucket heavier? Am I just imagining it? It's just water, right?
Remember, he's blindfolded. He cannot open his eyes to see what is happening.
Yeah, so, I mean, you tell me, was the bucket heavier? I don't know. See, that's the interesting thing is, okay, at this point we do know that it's creatures. We don't know what their size is. We don't know any, we have no context except the fact that looking at them makes you go freaking crazy.
Yeah,
so
the creatures don't attack. That's the thing that makes it even more scary is they don't attack you.
They're just
there.
They're just there.
They're there. And you know that if you see them, you are going to lose your mind.
Yeah.
And you will either kill the people around you and then yourself or just yourself or whatever it is. So can you imagine being blindfolded, trying to get water from a well? You're hearing noises down there. Your imagination, what you're thinking, even if there wasn't anything down there.
It's going, his imagination was running wild. He was freaked. So, yeah, Jules is like, dude, you good? Are you sure you're up to this? And Felix is like, yeah, I just need to do this 2 more times, whatever. So he goes back, and then he hears wet feet. Or wet steps. I was
thinking about it.
He, there was nothing, and then there's wet footsteps, and that's when he fucking freaks out, which, very valid. I was freaking out wearing it. So he runs back inside. Everyone's drawn by the commotion. They have this system, too, where they pat you down, and around you.
Yeah, they have, broomsticks, too, so they feel around you to make sure nothing's coming in with you.
Yeah. So they get inside, and he explains what's happening, and everyone's like, are you sure, you weren't just imagining it? And he's like, I don't know! And he gets really mad. It's one thing, because then the housemates start thinking, okay, if there was a creature in the well, did it contaminate our fucking drinking water?
Yeah, so then nobody wants to drink. Like, nobody.
But Tom, being Tom, is like, well, it's one of our only good resources we have. We have to know if it's contaminated or not. So he volunteers to drink the water, and they tie him up just like, you know, they did George. Same room, I think, which is a little fricked up. Nothing happens, though, thankfully.
No, water was not contaminated. So obviously the creatures don't contaminate water. Again, you just have to see them.
So this this is the thing that I love about this, and this is why I brought up Lovecraftian horror, because and I was very impressed with the Netflix adaptation. They never showed the creatures. I really applaud them for that, and I think that's a sticking point for some people. Like, they're mad that you never realize what they look like. That is the fucking point, okay? You don't, like, it drives me crazy when people get heated about that, because we are not meant to look at them. That's why we go crazy. The Netflix movie kind of did it a little bit different whereas they were saying, like, instead of, you know, it just wasn't comprehensible, it was, like, your biggest fear or something like that. Which is fine, I guess. Like, it wasn't gonna escape the adaptation unscathed. But they still didn't show the creatures, which I just think is special, because I'm gonna say something controversial here. If you want to see the creatures that bad, like, you just don't have an imagination. Because my imagination is what made this book so fucking scary, okay? Like, the author has a job to kind of deliver a story. Mm-hmm. The reader has the job to experience the story. If it's well written, and you have a good imagination, that kind of can carry you through. And that's what made this book so scary to me, because, like, you don't know what it is. Like, how can you can't comprehend it. Like, that it's just what makes it scarier to me. So, I want to bring up Jules and Victor. So, Jules is one of the members of the house, and he has a border collie named Victor, who is the goodest boy, the best dog ever. Jules is very protective of him. Yeah. He is all he has left. He did have a fiance who suffered the creature's existence, and so was not with him any longer. So all he had was Victor. And Victor, as a dog, actually gave Tom inspiration. They were kind of playing with the idea of, like, seeing eye dogs. Like, okay, are animals also affected by whatever's happening? Like, maybe their brains are simpler and therefore don't have to process as much. Like, I don't know, like, maybe they don't affect it. So
yeah, they had no idea if animals would go mad if they saw what was out there.
Jules did not want to test the theory on Victor, though. No. So Tom was like, okay, well, we're gonna go out and we're gonna see if we can find some dogs. Mallory immediately had a connection with Victor. Victor loved her. Victor was protective of her.
Yeah.
Not as close. Victor wasn't as close to Mallory as he was with Jules, but there was still a connection there. And he, periodically throughout the book, Victor will growl or bark at the doors, the front and the back doors, and he even starts growling at one point at the cellar door. And each time they kind of, it's not that they brush him off, it's just that they're just like, oh, he's just being weird or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of
he heard something, or so they you know, they're like, what is it, boy? You know, they know he's hearing something, but it is what it is, I think, at that point.
But I will just say that dogs are very good judges of character, so that's kind of a Chekhov's gun. So Mallory's there for a couple months, or like maybe about a month, not for very long, when they get a knock on the door. And it's another woman, and her name's Olympia, and she says, like, oh, you know, my husband was in the Air Force, he never came home. I've just been alone in my house. I heard you guys playing music. They had a piano.
Heard the piano, yeah.
So she came over, which was also very, very brave of her. And they do a vote, and they decide to let her in. Because at this point, they haven't... Mallory was the last one, you know? And they're kind of losing hope about other survivors. So they do all make a vote, and they allow Olympia into the house, which is when they realize that she also is pregnant. Which does not thrill anyone involved.
Any of them at all, you know.
They were actually, I think they almost kicked Mallory out. Like, they didn't vote on it or anything, but I think it was definitely on people's minds when she showed up and they realized she was pregnant. They're like, we did not sign up for this shit.
Well, yeah, what a scary thing. You're already isolated. You can't go outside. I mean, you can, but You're taking all your chances. You can't open your eyes. You don't know what's out there. Not just whatever creatures, but what kind of people might be out there that are losing their minds because they're seeing it, or,
right,
other people, or even we all know that under stress, human nature can turn pretty bleak and dark.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you throw 2 pregnant women into the mix of it, and
Yeah.
you know that you're going to be delivering these children. There's no hospitals. There's no doctors. Oh my God. I don't know that I'd let them in my house either. I mean, and then what do you do with babies once you have them in that world?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, especially the housemate that is especially not thrilled is the last person in the core group that we haven't mentioned yet, who is Don. Don was played by John Malkovich in the movie. Great fucking choice. Love John Malkovich.
Yeah.
This is actually the second thing we've talked about with John Malkovich in it, because he was in Velvet Buzzsaw, too.
Yeah.
He's a great actor.
Creepy things, but I really like him a lot.
So, Don he has probably the worst attitude out of all of the housemates. He
doesn't want anybody else in the house. He's very angry when they bring anybody into the house.
Yeah. He leans more towards pessimism, for sure. Yeah. He likes to pick fights. The thing with Don is, I think he is a very sad person. He obviously has the hardest time making connections with other people out of everyone else in the house. Like Mallory and Tom, and Mallory and pretty much everybody else in the house, they all click right away. Don's kind of an outlier, even when Mallory first gets there. Maybe because of personality clashes, whatever, but...
He's very gloom and doom.
Yeah.
When Tom went out to look for stuff, it was Tom and Jules, wasn't it, that went out to look for stuff?
It was Tom by himself the first time.
Yeah, he was like, he's never coming back. He's dead. He's, just very convinced that everything is bad.
And I don't think it was necessarily from a malicious standpoint.
No.
I mean, he did get a little mean about it, like, at a point, because I think he was just frustrated with the fact that they were in denial. Because he really thought that Tom wasn't going to come back.
Well, and I'm kind of this way, and it drives my boyfriend crazy, but if I look at the bad things, like everything bad that could happen, and I'm prepared for the worst, when things happen that are good, then I'm like, oh, all right. But if something happens that is bad that I thought of, then I'm like, well, see, I was prepared. Yeah, it's not a great way to live, but he's very, very much like that.
For sure. And when Tom came back that first time, he was definitely, you could tell he was very guilty, and he was relieved.
Yeah.
So it's not that he didn't care about his other housemates. I think he, at that point, because we don't learn a lot about his backstory in the book, I think he's lost so much that he doesn't want to care for more. It scares him. And so he just tries to keep everything at a distance. So the last person to come to the house is Gary. Oh, Gary. So Becky's so angry right now. If you could see her face, she's so pissed.
Oh, Gary.
Oh, Gary. So, yeah.
Well, first of all, they voted to bring him in, and it was a very close vote. They really didn't want him to be there.
Yeah, because at this point, both Olympia and Mallory, they're getting closer to their due date, and they're constantly, like, rationing food and re-rationing and recounting, and Dawn is very worried about the state of the cellar all the time, like how much food they have left. And so Mallory she ends up being the tiebreaker vote. And as soon as she votes yes to let this man in, she, like, immediately regrets it. Like, the vibes were bad immediately, at least for Mallory. And Don is pissed.
Don is mad. He didn't want him there, and he was not welcome. But Cheryl, right? She said that she did not want him there. Like, from the very beginning, she said she didn't like the way he sounded.
Yeah, she didn't like his voice.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I guess maybe Cheryl was a little bit useful. I don't hate her character. It's just like...
She just really wasn't...
Compared to everybody else,
present like everybody else was. Yeah. She was just kind of in the background.
So they let Gary into the house, and he comes with tales of where he used to live.
And he's carrying a briefcase.
And he's carrying a fucking briefcase, the most sketchy shit you can carry into a house. No. Anyway.
It is kind of weird. You show up in the post-apocalyptic world with a briefcase.
Yeah, he doesn't have, like, a backpack or anything like that. He doesn't...
A briefcase.
Yeah. And once he gets settled, he talks about what it was like at his old house and who was in the old house. And he brings up this man named Frank, and Frank thought that the creatures were not dangerous at all, and that people went mad because they expected to go mad.
Convince themselves that they were mad.
And Gary said that Frank eventually got kicked out because the other housemates were very paranoid about him being around them. Like, everyone else knew that the creatures were dangerous. Like, all the evidence points to them being fucking dangerous. And they were frightened for their own safety. They thought
he woke up one morning and he had opened the doors and the windows.
That's right, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so they voted to kick him out.
But nobody got hurt. That's what Gary said. Nobody got hurt.
So Frank fucked off, and
Gary left, his excuse being
he couldn't feel safe anymore or whatever.
Yeah, because they had said they were going to go after Frank and kill him, and he couldn't be around people like that, is what he had said.
Which is a weird...
I'm sorry, if I'm in this world where you can't look outside and you might die, and this guy that lives with me opens all the doors and the windows and puts my life at risk, I probably wouldn't chase him down to kill him, but those would be my first thoughts. I'm going to kill this guy so he doesn't come back to my house.
Like, he was willing to kill all of you. Like, even if he was... Say he was completely crazy, okay? And he didn't know that he was killing you. He's still capable of it, and he's still kind of eluding.
And you're just going to let him wander away? No, because he could come back. He knows how to get into your home. He knows all the secrets of your home because he lived with you.
Yeah.
So, yes, you can't blame the people for fighting for survival.
Yeah.
But Gary
wasn't comfortable with their murderous tendencies or whatever.
Yeah.
So Gary kind of gets settled in. Mallory's like, I don't really like this fucking guy. But everyone kind of, they kind of settle in around him, okay? And Don, actually, who was, I will remind the listeners here, fucking pissed that they ever let Gary into the house.
Super angry.
He actually becomes very close with Gary and listens to Gary talk about all of Frank's different theories. And it's never about what Gary thought about Frank's theories. It's always just like, oh, this is what Frank said about this, and this is what Frank did about this. And
which, the man tried to kill you, and that's all you're talking about. Strange.
But he kind of played it off with, like, how Tom was he kind of took over George's maverick nature about coming up with ways to survive outside. I think he was kind of angling out like this, like, oh, we're looking for different perspectives. Like, we're doing this and that. Like, Tom didn't fucking suffer a fool. But I think that was Gary's angle. Because Don didn't have any patience for Tom's optimism. Whereas Gary kind of came at it as a very objective, like, outsider. And so I think Don was just more willing to listen to what Gary was saying.
True.
So with the addition of Gary, though, they start to really get stressed out about the situation with food. And Tom and Jules are like, these pregnant ladies need medicine. Like, we need to go out.
And Tom wanted to go to his house because he knew he had certain things there.
Mm-hmm. And he was like, we looked over these maps, like, we know, we've gone over it 1,000 times, like, we can make it there.
They're going to march, they're going to walk to the beat of a song. They're going to sing the song while they walk.
Yeah.
Because they timed it out with that, which is pretty ingenious, I thought.
Yeah,
I was
very
like,
smart.
I would have never thought of that. So they actually planned it according to it was like 3 miles, they said his house was from theirs. So they planned it with the steps meticulously, how far they needed to go in the song so they would make the right turns and get to his house.
And they didn't know how long they were going to be gone because they had to go. They knew that they were going to go to Tom's house, but they also wanted to look for dogs and they had to get food too. So they kind of were leaving with no real window of time that they would be back, which can't even imagine the freaking anxiety of that. Tom and Jules were very upbeat about it, God knows how, but Mallory was immediately like, her stress level was 1,000.
Well, because the first time they left, they were supposed to be gone 12 hours, and they were gone, 48 hours?
Yeah, it was like 2 days.
So, didn't they already have the dogs when they headed out to his house? Oh, I thought they did.
No, they come back with the dogs. So and they want to find a phone book too. So the book does momentarily switch to their point of views, Tom's and Jules. They do end up finding all the things they set out to find. So food, Tom picked up some rum, medicine, they were able to find 2 dogs who horribly were living off of their owners' corpses because they were starving. And they also find a box of birds. And they found them because as they got near to this box, the birds started cooing. And Tom, being Tom, was like, oh shit, like this would be a great alarm system. Like we can set this somewhere outside the house, and anytime somebody comes up to the door, they'll alert us to it.
Yeah.
One of the first things that they come across, though, as soon as they leave the house, is there's just a tent in the middle of the fucking road. Mm-hmm. And they both kind of remark on how weird it is, but they got shit to do, so they just go, okay? So they're able to find the phone book, they find the box of birds, they find 2 huskies, food and rum and everything like that. And they do make it back. Now, when they were gone, Mallory's distrust of Gary, like, reaches a whole new level. Like, she just, like, it's her tone, she hates this man, okay? It's his tone of voice, it's the way he fucking talks, it's the way he looks at her.
It's the way he's whispering to Don all the time. And
yeah.
Huddling up with him and not talking to anybody else. And
yeah, Don at this point is not really hanging out with the other members of the house. He's pretty much exclusively hanging out with Gary. So she gets so paranoid that she actually ends up going through his briefcase. And in the briefcase, she finds Frank's notebook.
Frank's notebook.
Yeah, Frank's notebook. So she's like, there's no fucking reason for this guy to have it. Okay? Like, she never really has the direct thought that Gary is Frank, but she's just like, it's like her brain doesn't want to acknowledge that. She's straight up like, this man is a danger. I don't like this. But
why would he keep this if this man had done that to them? There's something wrong.
Like, how did he even get it? Like, did he kill Frank? Like, something's not adding up. But she doesn't want to do anything until Tom and Jules get back.
And he had told the housemates that Frank took his notebooks and left.
Yes, he had said that.
So, of course, that put a whole bunch of distrust there, more than Mallory already felt, because he lied.
Yeah.
He said he took his notebooks and left. Well, here he is with one of them.
Yeah.
So
Tom and Jules return, and there's like a huge celebration. They got so much food. They got 2 dogs. They got a fucking phone book, which is great. Like, they can just call all these people in this phone book. And Mallory is like, I can't take it anymore. And she just blurts it out. She's like, I looked through Gary's things. He has fucking Frank's notebooks. Like, we need to get him out of the house. Like, it's pretty much exactly how it goes. Like, he has Frank's notebooks. We need to kick him out. And, of course, everyone's like, what? Like, what do you mean?
First of all, one of the rules of the house is you don't go through other people's things. So Mallory knew she broke that, and she said, I know I'm not supposed to, but I didn't trust him. Something fell off.
Yeah. And so
Don, of course, was really pissed off that she went through his buddy's stuff. How dare you? Well, that's, we're not supposed to do that. Why would you do that?
Gary, of course, maintains his innocence. He said, I don't really have a good excuse for having it, but I just hope that you won't kick me out, please.
Maybe I kept it so I wouldn't turn into that kind of person. So it would remind me of what he did to us and that I wouldn't go there. Okay, buddy.
It's fucking cling wrap of an excuse. I don't know. Like, and the thing that really bothers me is, like, he even calls Mallory a nosy bitch. Yep. And he's nasty about it. And it's like, okay.
He called her a whore, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if it wasn't your fucking diary that she went through, why are you so mad? Yeah. Like, it's not like she didn't go through other stuff in the briefcase. She found that, stopped. Like, that was enough for her.
Yeah.
So, why are you so mad?
It was literally the writings of a madman. And she knew this.
Yeah.
And it terrified her. And, of course, she has a baby. And Olympia has a baby.
Yeah.
So you got these 2 women that she knows she has to protect these children from whoever or whatever. And this guy's just, something's not right. Yeah. She knows that. She feels it.
So Tom is like, hey, man, is this true? And Gary, again, he just maintains his innocence. But everyone votes to kick him the fuck out.
Except for Don. Don is very upset.
Except for Don, yeah. But it's, it's a democracy, so they go with the higher vote, and the higher vote is that they want him out.
And so every time someone leaves, they all make sure that their eyes are shut. They open the door. Person's out the door. They shut the door. They check with the broomsticks and stuff to make sure that nothing has come in. And they forced him out the door.
Yeah. So after that, Don immediately withdraws from the other housemates and begins spending all of his time in the cellar. Now, he already spent a lot of time in the cellar because he was, like, neurotic about counting food stores and stuff. But it got even worse at this point. And Victor, the border collie, he starts regularly growling at the cellar door. Now, it all comes to a head one night when Mallory goes into labor. The housemates all decided with Tom that the attic was probably the safest place. And she finds out that Olympia is actually already in labor, too. And in all of the time that she and Olympia had kind of bonded over their pregnancies and stuff like that, they never considered that they would deliver on the same night.
Yeah, they had even said that they would deliver each other's babies.
Yeah.
That was a big worry on who was going to do it.
Yeah. So they're both stuck in the attic having babies. Like, people are running in and out. Mallory is kind of delirious with pain. She has a hard time focusing on who is actually in the room and who isn't. And she starts hearing yelling out downstairs. And she can tell that it's Don. And Jules tells him, don't. But, like, that's really all of the context that she gets out of it. And she suddenly realizes, you know, with the babies being close to being born at this point, she suddenly realizes that she and Olympia aren't alone in the attic.
Yeah, she sees a shadow figure standing there.
And at first she thought it was Don. But it wasn't Don. It was Gary. And she realizes, and Gary later confesses, that he never left the house. Don helped sneak him when they were trying to push him out.
Shut their eyes and they thought he went out the door. He snuck him down to the cellar. And that's where he had been for 3 weeks, they said, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole time Don was hanging out in the cellar, it was just Gary behind the fucking tapestry, whispering into Don's ears. And he had convinced Don the same things that he said Frank had talked about. And at this point, he does admit to being the owner of the journal.
Yeah.
That the creatures really aren't dangerous. You won't turn mad. If you don't expect it, you'll turn mad. So Don is downstairs tearing off all of the sheets, opening all the doors, breaking windows. And all the housemates are desperately trying to stop him from doing this.
Yeah.
And
meanwhile, you have 2 women in full-fledged labor.
yeah, like, they are on the floor, blood, sweat, tears.
Yeah. Babies crowning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gary is just fucking reveling in it. He loves it. He's like, your babies, this is a great opportunity. Like, they haven't seen anything in this world. You should just show the creatures your baby. Your baby should see them. He's like, I look at them all the time. You wouldn't believe how
busy this street is.
You wouldn't believe how busy this street is. And that's when, as the reader, you realize that tent was Gary's, and he had been watching them.
And he admits that he had been watching them for weeks.
So, this is when Mallory really fully is like, okay, Gary has been mad this whole time. Mm-hmm. He was just kind of pretending to be sane. Now, was he sane before the creatures came? Or was he always crazy? That is never revealed in the book. And I actually like it better that way. But
I lean towards the people that are already mad don't go mad when they see whatever these creatures are, because they're not comprehending what they're seeing like we would.
Yeah.
That sends us into madness. Maybe I'm crazy too. Maybe I wouldn't go mad. Anyway.
So when everything is going crazy downstairs and, you know, it's just the 3 of them in the attic and their 2 babies, Gary locks the door and you hear someone banging at the door. And Mallory realizes that it's Tom, but it doesn't sound like Tom. He's yelling to be let in, but it doesn't sound like Tom. And that's when she realizes that probably everyone downstairs saw the creatures and they're all dead or dying.
Yeah. And
it eventually goes silent, and Gary's like, okay, I guess I can unlock the door now, like, I'll let the creature up. And that's exactly what he does. Mallory's back is to the attic door, but Olympia is facing her and facing the attic door. So as soon as a creature comes into the attic, Olympia sees it, and
her words were haunting.
It just snapped. her brain just snapped, and she said, "Oh, you're not so bad.
You're beautiful.
You're beautiful.
Would you like to see my baby?"
And in that, it's so sad. Because Olympia was really kind of the child of the group. She was very naive. She really went to Mallory regularly for comfort. Because they were in it together, you know? Like, they were both pregnant. They were both facing these odds.
Olympia was scared. She didn't know, you know, who was going to deliver her baby and if they were going to be okay. And at one point, she even, when things were scary and bad, she crawled in bed with Mallory and slept there with her because
they held each other.
Yep.
And so Mallory, she does try to reach Olympia because at this point the babies are born.
Mallory has blindfolded her baby.
Yeah. She like tore a strip of cloth or something.
Yeah, towel.
And she's like, I want to see your baby, Olympia. Can I see your baby? And Olympia's like, why do you want to see my baby? Like,
what's wrong with you?
You don't think I can be a good mother? Like, she's very nasty. And it's, you know, obviously because she's losing it. And Mallory's like, no, of course not. Like, I just, you know, I want to, it's a girl, isn't it? Like, let me see your daughter. And Olympia, and this was the worst part of it for me. She actually, like.
Mallory hears a noise.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes her a minute to comprehend what it is.
And it's Olympia chewing through the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a thing that happens. But Olympia, she gives Mallory her baby, which I think is one of the most special parts of the book. Like, even though Olympia is fucking batshit at this point, and she's gonna go outside, you know, she gives Mallory her baby, and then as soon as she gives Mallory her baby, it's like, that's it. The rest of her's gone, and she jumps out the attic window. She breaks it, and she jumps out the attic window, but not before wrapping her neck around the rest of the umbilical cord. And Gary says, she hangs by her cord. We just got interrupted in the most
awkward moment that it could have happened. Yeah.
Anyway, so he says she hangs by her cord. Oh my God, she hangs by her cord.
And he's celebrating it.
It's like the most majestic fucking sight this psychopath has ever seen.
Yeah. And
Gary actually leaves after this. Like,
just gone. Just gets up and leaves.
And Mallory senses that the creature leaves too. And keep in mind, she has just given birth, and she has to go down attic steps.
Yeah.
Or like a ladder.
Like a ladder.
Yeah, like a ladder, like very
steep.
She's
given birth. She's got 2 babies that she's trying to carry because she has Olympia's baby girl and her baby boy.
Yeah.
And they're both blindfolded, so she can save them. And she has to keep her eyes closed, too, because she doesn't know what she's going to find when she goes downstairs.
And she actually doesn't open her eyes or take her blindfold off or anything until she knows for sure that all the windows and doors are bolted and the sheets are back up. And she searched the house for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Having just given birth, stating in the book that she feels like her insides are falling out and her, like, she's gonna turn inside out and, like, she's in incredible pain. That she didn't get an epidural.
No, she didn't get anything.
She didn't get Tylenol. Like.
No, there's no medication for this girl.
But when she gets to the cellar, she hears scratching and she realizes that Jules put Victor in when shit went down. Which, oh my God, he didn't try to save himself. But he saved his fucking dog, goddammit. And that is
true love.
And it's really sad.
It is. It's horrifying. It is. It's just so heartbreaking.
So she buries all of the people in the backyard. And she starts to train the children right away. And this is where the child abuse trigger comes in. Because I'm not going to talk about whether or not it's necessary. That's not my place. Because it's the apocalypse or whatever, but she does, like, she punishes them if they wake up and they open their eyes.
Yeah.
And she, as soon as they get old enough, she starts quizzing them on, like, I just went into this room, where in the house was I? And they have to tell her accurately from across the house.
What am I doing now? Where am I at now? What do you hear? Lots of that. She actually at one point considers blinding the children when they're infants. So.
And that's because of something Don said.
Yeah.
Don says one day in the kitchen, you ought to blind those babies as soon as they come out.
Yeah.
And so she fights with that, but ultimately she can't go through with it, and so she decides to kind of condition them instead. Mm-hmm. And when you see her in the book with them on the river, they're her ears. They can hear much better than she can.
Because of all the training that she did with them to only use their ears rather than their eyes.
Exactly. So the biggest, most saddest part of this book for me was the fact that literally as she's climbing down the attic stairs, the phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
Which it has not rang a single time. And she realizes that it must be one of the people that they called from the phone book. And she answers the phone, and it's a man named Rick, and he says, "We have a huge place. There's hundreds of us. You and Tom can come down and be with us. You have to get here. You have to take the river, but you and Tom can be here and be safe. We grow our own food. We do all this." And it's his inclusion of Tom that really fucking just drives the stake into it, because it's like...
Because I really do believe that Mallory was falling in love with Tom. She looked up to him, she believed in him, and I think whether she was romantically in love with him or not, she was in love with him. She adored him.
Yeah.
And it was
how can you not?
Heart-wrenching.
Tom was the best. So, let's see, I'm trying to think. You notice I didn't spend a lot of time talking about the time on the river. It is good, it's just, it's not where the story lies. The story lies with Mallory surviving everything that she did, with the relationships that she had with the housemates. And it kind of her deciding to go on the river, that's the conclusion of the story.
Yeah.
Obviously, the story ends when she gets to the compound. Spoilers. Her and the children do arrive safely, but...
And there are things that they faced on the river that were scary, but you're right, that wasn't the story. The story is her life up until that point of getting on the river.
Yeah. And her love for her children really does shine through. I know she treats them very poorly. She even treats them very poorly in the movie. It's worse in the book.
It's a means to an end. She's not abusing them to be mean or cruel. She's trying to teach them how to survive in a world where if something happens to her, they have no other choice but to deal with what's going on.
Yeah.
And all of her conditioning and all of what seems like she's abusing them and being cruel and hurtful and mean is just a mother's love trying to protect the children that she has. She's come this far to keep them alive, and to lose them to such craziness would be absolutely devastating.
Yeah. Oh, I realized we didn't talk about one thing.
Oh no, what didn't we talk about?
The absence of Victor on the river and why that happens. So she finds Victor, and that's all she has left of the housemates. And like I said before, Victor and Mallory have an instant connection. He really does adore her, and he follows her around when she's pregnant all the time, and, sleeps at her feet, and, all this stuff. So Victor becomes her only companion besides the children, And they had talked about before how they wanted the housemates, they were gonna put microphones all around the yard so that they could hear anything that came. Now, this was kind of pre-Bird Box, but Mallory still kind of latched onto this idea and was like, that is actually, it seems like it would be a good idea.
Especially with the children, she felt that it was very important to have that for the kids.
Exactly, yeah. So her priorities shifted immediately. Okay, I have kids now. This is what we need to do. And the Huskies died with the rest of the housemates on the night that Don and Gary...
Yes, because, again, spoiler alert, animals can lose their mind due to...
But she didn't know that.
She didn't know that. She thought that they were...
They were just killed because,
Because of what was going on.
Yeah.
Whether it was Don that killed them, because I'm sure they had trained the dogs to help protect them.
Yeah.
And lead them when they were outside.
Yeah.
So nobody still at this point knew that the animals could lose their minds because they had taken those dogs outside.
Yeah.
They had Victor outside to go get those dogs. Nobody knew anything.
So she she's like, I'm going to leave the babies here. Me and Victor are going to go and see if we can.
Which that just terrified me. The whole time my heart was pounding when she left the babies there.
No, I know. I was like,
oh no.
Yeah.
I mean, she had to. Again, she had to, but.
Just super bad all around. So she remembers that she went to see like a band. So she knows approximately where this bar is. And she's like, they're going to have microphones. Like, they're going to have the equipment I need. I need to go get it. So she and Victor get there. And Victor is like, he doesn't like this place immediately. He's not happy. And she's like, just give me a minute. Like, he's scratching at like is it like a cellar?
It was a cellar door. It had a little metal ring.
Yep. And she's like, I don't really want to open that, thank you. And she
said there was a smell.
Yeah, she said that there was a smell. It was death, obviously. So she ends up opening it.
Which, again, I'm telling you, if I'm wearing a blindfold, I'm not opening something like that. I'm not opening a hole in the floor.
I still don't fully understand why she did.
I don't either.
This is the thing, is like, Mallory is an incredibly strong woman.
I think maybe she thought there might be someone down there.
Yeah, or, resources or something. She regrets it immediately because something comes out of the cellar. Or something is in the cellar and Victor sees it and he loses it.
Violently loses it.
Yeah.
And when the book talks about people killing themselves, well, animals do the same thing.
Yeah.
They literally kill themselves.
Yeah, which I don't want to go into because it was very upsetting. Mallory...
Super graphic.
Again, we did the audiobook for this, and the performer does an amazing job. This was a heart-wrenching, absolutely heartbreaking part of the book. Because Mallory she just keeps apologizing to Victor, and obviously Victor can't understand. He's a dog, and he's losing it, and she's just like, I'm so sorry, I never should have brought you here. He was all she had left.
The housemates. All.
And he was such a good dog. She does get the microphones out of it, though. She does.
Which kept her and the children safe for 4 years before they got on the river.
Helped her train them and all that. So I don't think, at the time, Mallory thought it was worth it. I think later on she thought it was worth it, but losing Victor almost broke her.
Yeah, at one point when Jules was still alive and they were talking about taking Victor out, and they said something about sacrificing, and Jules was very angry. He's like, I'm not sacrificing my dog. And I think that's what Mallory clung to, is that she felt she sacrificed him for something, and she didn't mean to.
No, you're right. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Like, she felt like she betrayed Jules.
Yeah. And that's not, she would have never put Victor in danger willingly.
No, if she had known, she never would have taken that dog out of the house ever again. She would have set up a little pee pad in the corner for him, and she'd have been like, nope.
Yep.
We're all in this together. And she even says in the beginning, like, she mentions Victor pretty early on in the book before you really get to know Victor and Jules and the other housemates. And she said, oh, how she misses that dog. In the early days when she thought about taking the river, he was always there with her. Yep. And I know, like, okay, I know we're kind of stuck on the dog here, but it's just really upsetting, okay? Like,
if you're a dog lover, an animal lover, you totally know.
He was just an innocent dog, and he was just trying to help Mallory, and
I really hate when the animals in movies or books are the ones that suffer, too, because I don't understand. They're the most innocent that we have, and it's just not freaking fair. It's just not fair.
It's not fair.
No.
And the kids, like, they don't even know, like, they don't grow up knowing what animals are.
Yeah.
They know fish because they go fishing in the river.
Yeah.
But that's the only animal they know, and I think, gosh, if they'd grown up with a puppy.
And I think that's very heart-wrenching, too, is that they don't know. You know, she talks about when they're on the river and that they might get curious to see.
Yeah.
And
they never do. They're really good kids.
Yeah. She trained them well. She kept them alive, and that's a huge thing for a mom.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of very heart-wrenching moments in this book. It's brutal. If you watch the movie, the book is so much better, but it's so much more brutal.
Yeah.
And heart-wrenching and sickening at times, and it puts you through all the emotions. I cried, I laughed, I got scared a few times, wanted to curl up in a corner.
It is really scary. I definitely recommend reading the book. I recommend the audiobook. The audiobook is really good. I'm very picky about my audiobooks. I don't always go through with them once I start them because I hate the narrator. But
I'm the same way. It has to be a decent narrator for me to enjoy it.
But no, she does a great job. And Josh Malerman, I think he's written a lot since Bird Box. It was his debut novel, and I definitely look forward to reading more by him because this was excellent. I know he did write a sequel called Mallory, which I probably will never read, to be honest, because this book is perfect, in my opinion. And I don't think it needs a sequel. I think it's just the perfect little novel. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, I don't know.
I think I loved where it ended. She was still protecting her babies.
She sure was.
And
she was ready to rip a man's throat out.
Yeah, she was. And it just kind of, I don't really need to know anymore. She finally got somewhere where hopefully she found some peace and could let her children be children.
I think that's what it is for me, too. Like, at the end of the book, she was able to relax a little bit, and she gave the children names.
Yes, which I thought was amazing.
Because, again, the whole time she refers to them as boy and girl. Her son's name is Tom, and her daughter's name is Olympia, which is also perfect.
Yep, I thought so, too.
So, have you guys read Bird Box? Have you watched the movie? What did you like? What did you hate? I will say the things that I liked about the movie, because I did like a few things. The acting, of course, was really good. Sandra Bullock was amazing. Tom Malkovich was amazing. I can't remember the actor's name who played Tom, but he was great. Gary, in his briefcase, they included drawings. I don't know if you remember that. They are all very Lovecraftian and creepy and terrible. I love that detail. I don't know if they were trying to imply that's what the monsters look like, or if he was just crazy and that's what he just...
Gary was crazy.
He was crazy.
Just crazy. I hate Gary.
And Tom, they kept Tom alive for longer. He was with Mallory and the babies for a while after they were born, which I did like. I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that change because it's Tom. Can't get enough of that man.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
For sure.
But they didn't include the fucking dogs, which pissed me off, and I will die mad about.
Because the dogs were a big part.
And Victor, they just totally wrote out Victor, which is unforgivable. He was the goodest dog.
Well, and I really wish they would have had it take place in Michigan, just like the book, not, you told me California, I couldn't remember.
It's fucking, of course,
because the whole thing about Michigan is first of all, you have cold winters, there's a little bit more to surviving in
she goes on the river in the middle of fucking October, which, if you know anything about Michigan, it's cold as fuck in October.
If you know anything about the Detroit River, you don't want to get into it to begin with, but there you are.
So, yeah, I don't think that was a necessary change. I think they probably just didn't want to film in Michigan. But, we claim so little. Just let us have our Michigan fucking author.
About the Petoskey Stone. Olympia gives one to Tom before they leave.
Yeah, because it's a good luck.
It's a good luck
term. And so this book is amazing. If you're not good with reading books, try out the audiobook. You can watch the movie. The movie's okay.
Book is much better.
Book is much better. Yeah. And this is Becky. Becky saw the movie first.
Yep, I did.
I read the book several times before the movie ever came out. And again, I didn't hate the movie. It just isn't the same.
Yeah, no, it isn't. I enjoyed the movie because, like I said, I didn't have a reference.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I chose to do the audiobook, is because I wanted more, because I, had talked to you and said there was so much more included in it. So, once I started listening, I was engrossed and I wanted more, and then I didn't want more because it was heartbreaking, and then I wanted more, and it was a really good read, for really good listen. I enjoyed it very much, and we have talked a long time tonight about it, but definitely deserves every minute we could give it. So
yeah, and we're thinking that February is going to be Vampire Month. We're going to talk about scary vampires, sexy vampires.
So if you have a favorite vampire, shoot us a message on our Facebook or post on our Facebook, or
whatever.
Let us know. We do have an email. We should be posting that too.
We should. I mean, it is linked on the Facebook page, but we should probably throw it out there a little more often than we do.
Yeah.
And we are still working on uploading to other platforms. It's just we have full-time jobs and are busy, so we're trying.
Yes, yes.
This is not our full-time job.
I can't even get the microphones to work weekly. So there you go.
All right, thanks so much for listening. My name is Sydney Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Snow.
And we're the Becks.